G'day, Newcastle. Welcome back to the Jetstream. We are back in your ear holes. Apologies for a few weeks off. We've had, obviously, like I always say, we record when we can. We've had a couple of things going on the last 2 weeks, but we are back to talk over the final game of the regular season, which was an awesome result, and half-time. Essentially in the two-legged semi-finals. We'll talk about that and a little bit more besides, but I've got one of my fellow contributors back to join me again, and it's good evening, Andy. How you going, mate?
Hello, Furns. It's exciting to be able to talk about 4-0 wins over the Mariners.
Oh, absolutely.
And getting that kind of information into your ear holes is always good on a Thursday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. That's when you'll be getting this episode. We are recording this on Wednesday night, obviously, but yeah, we predict it every time there's an F3 derby, and finally, mate, the 4-0 scoreline came off, and it was pretty much an awesome cap to a fantastic season, a really great Anzac tribute. Obviously, this was played on Anzac Day a couple of weeks ago, and a really good observance by everybody that attended the game. Obviously, everyone was in Anzac Day mode as it was, and it was a public holiday, so it was an absolutely awesome turnout. We will get into talking about specifics about the game, but really good effort effort and planning and everything from the Jets for the pre-game Anzac commemorative ceremony.
Yeah, absolutely. And, those kind of things with Anzac Day, by the time everyone does, dawn services and 11 o'clock services and every other form of service and 2-up and everything else, it can, not that it's ever a drag, but it can seem like it's just going through the motions. But I think the club and the league and whatever involvement they had, they made sure that it was still a important thing that commemorates people that have done so much for us to be able to even actually have football. And I think the current, world climate just goes to show that completely different breed of people. And I'm not sure these days that there are, there are definitely some good people in our armed forces, but also some people that I absolutely would not want to see going and fighting for us. So yeah, good to have football.
Yeah, absolutely, and impeccably observed, I must say as well. Actually, I was in the ground for that game, and mate, I posted about it on our socials during and afterwards. It was our third highest regular game attendance of all time. It was narrowly beaten. I think that was the final attendance number, I think, was 20,930, and I'm pretty sure the second place was 20,980. So we really were. I'm pretty sure I posted on Twitter after the game when I was looking at the post game. Looking at the historical records to see how high that actually ranked. I was like, couldn't we find another 50 people, like 51 people, just to try and bump the result up a little bit? But look, it was a fantastic turnout, a crowd that was engaged the entire game, beginning to end. Good turnout from the travelling Mariners as well, considering they had absolutely nothing to play for. They still not as huge a turnout as some previous games, but still a decent turnout from them. But overall, a fantastic occasion, and great to see the stadium just as full for a Jets game as it was for the Knights game the following day.
Yeah, absolutely, and a good thing for the local economy to be able to get all those kind of games back to back, and credit to the ground staff to also be able to turn things around pretty quickly overnight.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and probably beneficial to us that the games were Saturday soccer, Sunday rugby league way around rather than the other way around, which it usually is, which would have resulted in a much harder job, I think, for the pitch to be in good condition for our game.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do feel like for how, sandy the pitch is at McDonald Jones, it seems to bounce back pretty quickly. There hasn't been massive, haven't heard about anyone complaining about conditions of the pitch really this season. So
I'm pretty sure there was I'm pretty sure the PFA released a players survey about. I think it was just after the final round. They come out with their season summation, if you will. The players voted on best atmosphere and best pitch and all that sort of thing. And I'm pretty sure that McDonald Jones was pretty much in the around the middle of the pack. Not perfect, but not shithouse either. So it's good, but it could be better. You and I did. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, it was you and I that had a long discussion about turf a couple of episodes ago that wasted a good 20 minutes partway through an episode recording. So we have covered this ground before, but like I said, yeah, I think that it would be great if we did a couple of different things with regards to the surface that we're using. But hey, it's not as bad as it has been.
So interesting you should say that. I've just pulled up that said PFA ranking or whatever else. And for best pitch quality rankings, you'll be pleased to know that McDonald Jones Stadium actually come in at number 10 with a 3.6 out of, I'm guessing, 5. Number 1 was HBF Park over there in Perth.
Yep.
And
Go Media Stadium. I think Go Media Stadium, I think, was pretty high up in everybody's.
Yeah, so but we got pipped by things like Polytech, so Central Coast, Amy Park, like even Campbelltown beat us. So
oh, really? That surprises me.
Yeah. So Go Media got the best atmosphere.
Yep.
Well, Amy Park specifically for Melbourne Victory matches was number 4 in atmosphere. And you'll be shocked, I'm sure, to know that Suncorp Stadium got the worst or second worst atmosphere, followed by or behind Campbelltown, which only got a score of 1.5 for atmosphere.
Yeah, well, that it just goes to show a full stadium with a smaller capacity will always be a better experience than a large, oversized stadium with a smaller turnout. Well, yeah, it stands to reason, doesn't it?
Indeed.
Now I'm just trying to find this. I did have it somewhere, but I'm looking over the Ultimate A-League website, and I can't actually get the attendance records up. So I'll keep looking for it in a little bit. But mate, like I said, not often we can talk about a 4-0 win that we basically spend, I think, probably the last since Bodie was on, so that would probably be about the last 12 years of our Jetstream lives predicting 4-0 wins against the Mariners, and it's great that it came off. And look, overall, the game was not total domination, but it was a fairly comfortable performance. There was a couple of iffy moments, a penalty appeal aside, that we'll talk about in a minute, but overall a pretty decent game, and one that will go down in history.
Yeah, absolutely, and great to see the mix of players that actually got goals once again. That it was, across the park. It wasn't just 3-1 or 2-1 or anything like that. It was everyone getting in there, and I think that showed well for the end of the season to still go out on a high and actually, make something of it and not just be sort of job done. Obviously, we'd already had the Premier's plate locked away, so there was no sort of going back into the shell and just hoping for the best.
And ironically, thanks to the Mariners, there was quite a. I mean, we did talk about it on the previous episode. Myself and Matt, I'm pretty sure, but yeah, it was nice of them to be able to do the favour for us for once.
Yeah, well, it's about time that they got involved. So yeah, good effort, Mariners. Good effort.
And they can't hold that over us anymore. That they've won a trophy that we've never won. But we can now hold over them the fact that they've never won the Australia Cup.
Yeah, and hopefully,
never will.
couple of weeks' time, we might be able to do a few other things as well.
Well, fingers crossed, but we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Yeah, so, I mean, jumping, I'm going to go back into my stats and look at now that was Saturday the 2nd. No, it wasn't. It was Sunday, wasn't it? Sunday the 3rd. No. I'm trying to pull up these stats for this game. What was the date?
Date of the game.
Yeah.
It was the 25th of April is usually Anzac Day, my guy.
That's correct. You are absolutely correct. There we go. Found it. Right. So looking at the lineup, obviously Delianov in goals, Bertolicio, Shaughnessy, Natta, Wilmering, Bayliss, Dobson, Burgess, Taylor, Gibson and Adams. So obviously we got news during this game that there was an issue with Lockie Rose. So that was a bit of a downer. And obviously he was missing for the Sydney FC game as well. So fingers crossed he's going to be ready for the second leg. But were you a little bit concerned before obviously it turned out all right and everything was all hunky-dory with a 4-0 win, but were you a little bit concerned
about
not having Lockie Rose available?
No, because we've said a few times here that, it's not like I'd be more concerned now if you were going to have Eli Adams or a Clayton Taylor out for the week than I would be Lockie Rose.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And look, Gibson did pretty well, I thought, in this game. Put himself about a lot. Didn't get a goal, unfortunately, but still performed. Looking at the FOTMob player ratings, Eli Adams got man of the match with an 8.4, but Gibson wasn't very far behind on a 7.5, and everybody else was mid to high sevens. So it was overall, it was a really positive performance, is what I'm saying. We didn't seem to miss not having Lockie there, although it would have been good to actually have him there.
Yeah. Oh, and look, probably the kind of game that he gets one and confidence builds and he goes on a bit of a run into things. We've always said he's a bit of a confidence player, it seems, but it just hasn't been coming off for him of late.
Yeah, absolutely. So fingers crossed he's going to be at least to be available on the bench for the game on the weekend, but we'll get to that. Mate, really, really excellent. Considering the amount of people that were in the ground that were obviously people that haven't been to a Jets game before or haven't been to a Jets game in forever, a really involved and engaged crowd for the entire game, and as well, fantastic. I was sitting across. The squadron had to move back into Bay 1 for the expected numbers, and they had that Bay Chockers. There was a lot of times where the chants were carrying across to the Western Stand. The Western Stand would join in on the "Come on Newcastle" and Newcastle chants. They would even start up a couple on occasion. It was a really good atmosphere.
Yeah, and hopefully that's the kind of atmosphere that's going to carry into this week's match as well to, really make something of it and make it we always say that we want this to be a fortress and all that sort of stuff, but yeah, it's something that we really need to get to, I think, to really solidify that this is a club that people get behind.
Yeah, well, obviously the more people come through the stands, the more email addresses the club will have to be able to spam relentlessly in the off season to sign up for membership. So hopefully that's going to be everybody. Or I mean, what's happened and what happened in previous seasons. Obviously we all know what happened in 2018. There was a big drop off, even though it started off well. It didn't end that way, unfortunately, but hopefully we can start to build the membership and the crowd figures back up again, so that if we do have a bit of a downturn, we won't be going back to 6,500 people. We'll be getting high 8s, 9s rather than what we've been putting up with for seasons on end.
Yeah, and that's also obviously one of the main forms of revenue for the club is obviously, bums on seats.
Yep.
So if you want to get investment in players and all that sort of stuff, I feel like one of the best ways to do that is obviously by showing up and paying your ticket fee, and that being able to go a bit more into the club and keeping, like we always say, you look at people like the Knights that can pretty much bank on what 25 odd thousand every week. It certainly makes your budgeting pretty easy.
Yeah, and they've been shit for years. So but
Yeah.
they're running from a historical base, whereas we've only been around for 20 years. So hopefully, with all the turmoil is sort of out of the way, and knock on wood, I haven't just jinxed it, but yeah, hopefully everything's on an even keel that we're going to be able to capitalise from this finally, and it's going to be a period of sustainability. There's an early contender for podcast episode title. Just found it on my on the Jetstream Instagram. Highest regular season attendances. So first, the highest was 22,518. That was final round of the 2012-2013 season with Wanderers. That was obviously a big bump in crowd from the Wanderers side of things for us. That sort of kicked that over. Second was round 18 against Sydney in the 06-07 season. That was the 20,980, and obviously 50 less than that was the derby that just that we're talking about now. But I was thinking before the game we'd get. I didn't think we'd get over 20. I would have been happy with 18, 19 would have been a fantastic result in my opinion, but to get nearly 21,000 was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and it'd be great to see that sort of come every week, but let's not
we know
get
how
ahead
realistic.
of ourselves.
Yeah, we know how realistic that is.
Well, I think also too, like the A-League doesn't sort of lend itself well to a consistent crowd because it's not you don't sort of end up playing at the same time every week. And then
Yeah.
if you do, there's so many other conflicting things there. A Sunday night game might be too late for people. There's all sorts of things that we go through every time.
Yeah. Sometimes it's 40 degrees.
We have this debate. Sometimes it's 40 degrees. Sometimes it's 40 degrees and pouring down rain.
Yep.
Like, you just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Oh, there's bushfires around and nobody can breathe. And absolutely. Sometimes it's just not conducive for people to rock up. But yeah, like I said, fingers crossed that we're going to be able to see a bit of a bump in crowds as we as the seasons progress. But I think and also I think the style of play also helps attract people back, and I think the whole box office #BoxOfficeJets obviously something that was started and picked up by people fairly early on with the style of play, but with I got off the phone with Josh from the Newcastle Herald. He's doing an interview with a bunch of different fans, and he got in contact with me, and I've had a bit of a chat, and I was talking to him about this as well. He said, well, what's been what were you impressed about, and what's been the standout things for you for this season? I'll say, well, look, the fact that the team's filled with local players, the team is filled with young players, but the team's filled with young players of quality, and we're seeing that in the way they play. There was a bit of a tricky period early on in the season, but the coach adjusted things and changed things around, and we stopped conceding so many goals, and that's when we started winning. And and I sort of was at pains to point out to him, look, we don't, obviously people in the main will show up when a team is winning, but what the Novocastrian public want to see is a team that's fighting for the shirt. They don't have to win every week, but we want to see them actually having a go and look like they're enjoying themselves, and they're not just here for a paycheck. We want to see them fighting for the club and for the badge. And I don't think there's been a game this season at all where I've seen any of them give up. It's been a consistent effort the whole way through. Sometimes it might be to their detriment where they blow themselves out or they haven't kept the shape and the style of play hasn't quite worked, but they've always been trying. And that's, I think, has been what's resonated with the public.
Yeah, and I think also a couple of points that you've picked on there. The Jets over the last couple of years prior to Maverick coming in is not somewhere I would have come purely for a paycheck because let's face it, simply because you get on the field wasn't going to guarantee you a paycheck
Yeah.
under previous ownership models.
Yeah, that's true.
But also too, just on the crowd figures and ongoing and stuff like that, I'd be interested to see the, I guess we'll say psychology around the fact that you go on and say, regardless of where to from here, we've had a strong season, probably one of the better seasons we've ever had. You then enter the 6 months off before you even start having, Australia Cup games again or anything like that. And so therefore it's this void of, the momentum dies and then you've got to rebuild the momentum.
Yeah.
And that's where, obviously membership strategies and stuff like that. Like if I was the club and they may very well do this, I don't know. So I'm not, bagging anyone, but I'd be having membership information dropping like the day after the grand final or the day after whatever our last game is. Like memberships are on sale to try and get that, you know, lock people in for the next season while there's still momentum and hype around.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's fair call.
Because otherwise, like, for what ends up being, and you always have people say like the downfall of the A League is it's the longest possible off season and all that sort of stuff. Like your momentum is going to die to the point where no one's talking about the A League until basically a couple of weeks before it restarts again.
Yeah.
Um,
Late August, early September.
yeah, why not get in there and actually, try and get those people signed up for memberships and everything so that at least you've got them locked in.
Yep. And I think
So
I mean, and I think until the league actually expands, like we get more teams involved, that's going to be an ongoing issue. We need to close that off season up a lot more than it has, but unfortunately, while teams are still in turmoil, like the seasons, but while the regular season, the Mariners season's been over for 2 weeks, and we still haven't heard whether this takeover's completed or not. It's in the pipeline. They may be waiting until after the grand final to announce that. I don't know. Obviously, the current rumor is there's some sort of consortium involving whoever owns QPR. And we still don't know. We still don't know what's happening with Western United. And we still don't know what's happening with Canberra United. There was supposed to be a men's team going into Canberra at some stage, and because there's uncertainty around that, they don't know if the women's team's even going to exist next season. So, yeah, and I think we're entering the final year of the TV deal, so there's no real certainty about how much money's actually going to be available for clubs as part of the APL grant. So it's an interesting 12 to 18 months. For these and other reasons. So, some teams.
but we don't even, and when I say we, the league doesn't even seem to really do the whole like preseason friendly trial match, whatever you want to call it. Well,
As in the
like,
overseas teams.
well, you don't bring in like there'll be the handful of like Sydney Super Cup or whatever they call it, like Premier League team coming over or something like that. But even, you know, if we play a preseason friendly against a Sydney FC, it's usually on like a Wednesday morning at Maitland or something like that,
Yeah.
or some obscure university behind closed doors or something like that. And I know you're not necessarily going to go and pay the fees for a McDonald Jones for, a preseason or whatever else, but like you could create a pretty comfortable, happy atmosphere for like a good, like do an F3 derby as just like a, Sunday afternoon, like make it free to go to.
In the off season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about. I like to keep the derbies as special account. I don't like it when we play F3 when we play the Mariners with nothing on the line. Like it means more if we're playing them in the A League or in finals. I don't like playing those games outside of that, and I think this season especially is going to be a problem with getting teams and all that sort of thing over here, even paying top dollar for anyone in the Premier League, because all the eyeballs are going to be on the World Cup. Like you're going to be you're going to have no oxygen to spare in the football world, because everyone's going to be focused on watching international football for the next 5 to 6 weeks once the finals have finished. So yeah, this season especially, I haven't heard anything about people, any teams coming over. But look, I don't know. It's something that this league struggled for years and years and years because of the size and the lack of professional teams that we have, and the fact we got no promotion and relegation between the tiers. So yeah, it's until until we either create more teams, more professional teams, or we open the pathway up for semi-pros to come up into the A League and expand it to 20 teams. It's going to be, but then we're going to be running into other issues about when does the season play. Ground availabilities, because a lot of places are going to be shared grounds, especially for broadcast. I highly doubt that the broadcast quality at Adenza Park is going to be sufficient to be able to run an A-League game from it. They're going to have to spend, thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars upgrading facilities to be able to, cater for spectators and cater for broadcasting. At this money that just isn't around. So yeah, it's something that's been obviously a slow issue to fix, but again, everything takes money, and I think we got burned a little bit by COVID, especially going on for a number of years, losing, which then precipitated the loss of the Foxtel deal, which then precipitated all that money disappearing, and then precipitated the loss of spectator revenue. So, clubs had a whole bunch of money taken away from them, and we haven't really recovered yet. And I think it's gonna take ages to fix a bunch of these issues. But first and foremost, we need to get a rights deal signed that gives us more money, and then we need teams in places where people actually think teams should be. Canberra needs to have a team. Wollongong needs to have a team. There should be a team in bloody Tasmania. There's a nice shiny new stadium over in Christchurch. So, get another New Zealand derby happening. So Wellington, Auckland, and Christchurch, and see where else we need to get other teams in, because if you're not going to promote them from the semi-professional tier, then we need to start getting. We need more games, pure and simple, and we need a shorter off season.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was another nice little side road that we went down. So we're not really going to go too much more into that, into the final game of the derby. Look, overall, it was a fairly even game with regards to possession, but all of the stats for the most part were in the Jets' favour. Just go and look up the stats if you want, but I'm seeing a whole bunch of ticks in the Jets column and not very many in the Mariners column, which pretty much was the tail of the tape for the game. Was there any real, apart from Eli Adams, was there any other real standouts for you in that game before we talk about the finals?
Will Dobson did well from memory in that game. I was pretty happy with him, and I think just at the end of the game, all the the players just buying into the fact that yes, they'd won another trophy, but the job still wasn't completely done.
Yeah, and that was definitely the message from Milty after full time before the presentation. Got on the microphone for anybody who didn't see the telecast or wasn't in the ground. Basically thanked everybody, went through a bunch of people that needed to be thanked the crowd, and said that the players deserved it because that was their mission to play the way that would get the crowds back, and that was most certainly the case. I was probably I thought maybe we would have set up something a little bit more than just a advertising hoarding on the pitch with premiers in front of it. I thought maybe a stage and presenting the medals rather than just handing them out as they got onto the pitch. I thought maybe that could have been done a little bit better, but I mean, overall, the presentation was basically all the players getting behind the Premier's sign, Millsy having a chat with the crowd and thanking everybody for a couple of minutes. Steve Rosic, I think that's his name, the guy that runs the APL, brought the plate over, handed it to Costa Grozos, lifted the club, and then boom goes the dynamite. That was pretty much it. I thought maybe they could have drawn it out a little longer with medals presentation, but yeah, that's a very minor, not really a gripe, but just an observation. I thought maybe they could have drawn that out a little bit longer. But if people wanted to
Mate,
get out of there pretty quick,
I would say on a public holiday and whatever else that it would have all come down to dollars and cents of keeping people there longer.
yeah, possibly. But yeah, look, like I said, I don't think it was anything major. It was also probably one less thing for the ground staff to break down because they were literally out there with vacuum cleaners and brooms trying to vacuum up all the glitter. Well, not really glitter. The shiny gold confetti that just went absolutely everywhere with the breeze, and I was having quite a chuckle standing there with a couple of other people in base 60 watching them fruitlessly try and sweep them up into a pile that wasn't working. They tried the blower, that just made the problem worse. They then tried a vacuum cleaner, which still didn't. It was they ended up coming out. Well, I think they must have grabbed the vacuums that they used to clean the corporate suites upstairs because they had a couple of guys out there with extra long extension cords and backpack vacuum cleaners trying to vacuum up all this bloody confetti all over the pitch. That was a bit of hilarity for the end of the game for me, anyway.
Or maybe that was the true, performance they were going for.
Yeah. They were definitely the true workhorses and the unsung heroes was the ground staff at McDonald Jones Stadium. Big shout out to them because they had to. Apparently they were there for ages cleaning up and getting everything set up for the following day. So, but yeah. Now, look, like I said, I wasn't complaining, but it was just a minor observation I had that maybe the rather than just literally handing the trophy over and that being it, maybe they could have done a presentation with the medals and then got all the players on a stage and then presented them that way. But doesn't matter. It's all good. We got the trophy. That was the main thing. So the final table at the end of the regular A League season was obviously the Jets sitting up there in first, 48 points. Adelaide United ended up pipping second with 43, 1 point ahead of Auckland, who dropped down to third. Melbourne Victory, fourth with 40 points. Sydney FC, 39 in fifth. Melbourne City, 38 in sixth. That was your finals qualifiers. Seventh was Macarthur, 34. Wellington Phoenix, 33. Central Coast, 32 in ninth. Perth Glory, 31. And that's a surprise because I think most people thought they were going to be rock bottom. And they managed to pull themselves up off the ladder, the bottom of the ladder, to finish in 10th. Brisbane Roar, 26 points in 11th. And Western Sydney in both the men's and the women's competition, bottom of the league, which was a bit of a surprise. Well, probably not to very many people watching how they played during the season, but most people's predictions, I think, at the beginning of the season did not have the Wanderers right down the very bottom. But that's where they ended up. So the first week of the finals, then Andy saw third playing sixth and fourth playing fifth. Auckland obviously hosting Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory hosting Sydney FC. And for the first time I think they said it was the first time since 2019, there was no Melbourne teams in the semi-finals. So Melbourne Victory and Melbourne City, both of them got turfed out by Auckland and Sydney.
Yeah, well, that's, I guess, the way that it goes is that you get into finals football and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both of the games were. I didn't actually watch them. I was at work, but it sort of the Sydney FC Melbourne Victory game was a bit of a surprise. I think a lot of people thought that the Sydney performance in that game was like a dogged defensive display, which ended up getting them a win, which we thought was going to be the same way they were going to play against us in the first leg of the semi-finals, which we'll get onto now. But that's not the way the first leg worked out when we travelled down to Allianz Stadium on the weekend. And Sydney FC really, again, mate, it's every time the Jets have a week off, whether it's for international breaks or some, whatever other reason, it always seems to be to our detriment. We never come back in the first game and perform well. It wasn't through lack of effort. It was just both teams went at each other, but it just seemed that Sydney had more of the momentum, and we just seemed slightly unpolished, like passes sort of not going where they were meaning to. 50-50s falling Sydney's way a lot of the time. The ref was a bit of an issue for me in this game, not calling very many fouls. He let quite a lot go, some for both teams, but there was a couple of times where I thought we could have ended up with a couple of decisions and didn't get anything. But we just really seemed not to be at our best in this game.
Yeah, and we definitely took first 20 minutes or so, we just really took about that amount of time to capitalise and start getting into the game.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we were just lucky that once again, Delianov seemed to actually play pretty well and keep us in the game, and a lot of things went our way from that side of things. But beyond that, yeah, we were lucky to come through the first 20 minutes there and be able to actually still be in the hunt for it.
Yeah, definitely. Look, there was, again, not really much movement with regards to the starting lineup. I'm pretty sure the starting lineup was exactly the same as it was in the derby. And looking over it, yes, it was. Gibson leading the line again, with Rose not even on the bench, but he was at the game because he was at the fence at the conclusion of full time, thanking the away support, which was a fantastic turnout. By the way, I actually did go down for the away leg because I will be working this weekend and won't be able to attend the game in Newcastle. But I thought, well, I've got the weekend off. I may as well travel down. Grabbed one Murray Fletcher that some people will have heard of, and we drove down to the pregame pub, which was the Light Brigade in Paddington. It was rammed to the rafters, some nice atmosphere in there before they all marched down to the stadium, fantastic turnout and atmosphere in the away end, I must say.
Yeah, and great to see more and more. I believe there was 4 or 5 buses that went down.
Yep.
That the club put on and things like that, and they're the kind of things, again, going back to what we said, 40 minutes ago now, that if the club know that there are numbers there, the club will allow or promote and support things like that. And how good would it be if 90% of our, or at least all our New South Wales played games were 4 or 5 buses of supporters going every week?
Yeah, definitely. And away games are always a more exciting game to go to because you definitely get the diehard fans going down there and being a lot more involved. It's a smaller, concentrated group of people. We basically had supporters scattered across most of that Sydney Cricket Ground end.
Yep.
But I reckon easily 400 or 500, probably even more. Like I said, there was a full pub, and like you said, there was at least 5 supporters buses that made the trip down. I was really surprised by the turnout from the Sydney fans. They didn't end up announcing the attendance at the game, and I didn't find it. Someone posted it up the next day on the forums. Apparently, it was 17,700, which I thought for a team that performed pretty poorly in the first half of the season and got a run together towards the end and qualified for finals. That's a pretty poor turnout, especially on a Saturday night in Sydney with nothing else on.
Yeah.
I found that really surprising. I thought they would at least get, 25,000 in that stadium. But yeah, I got in there. It was my first ever visit to the new Allianz. I hadn't been there since they ripped the old one down. And outside is fantastic looking, like the whole outside concourse and everything. All the surrounds is really good. It's all done up, and it's a really nice stadium from the outside. Inside, not as much of change as I was expecting from the old stadium, apart from newer seats, split level tiers the entire way around, and an absolute crap load of advertising, LED advertising boards everywhere. And a really awful pitch that they've already replaced and was still absolute crap to play on. It looked terrible from. I can't imagine what it looked like on the telecast, but it looked awful in the stadium.
Yeah, look, I didn't find that it looked horrible, but I guess you can make grass look great if you put the right things into it. But
They haven't.
yeah,
They haven't
it's
been. There was a massive brown patch running the entire length of the pitch, and like I said, it's only new. So I
yeah,
don't understand how it looks that bad for something that was only laid 3 months ago.
yeah. I guess the big thing is that turf seems to not be the greatest thing for sporting fields for some reason. They don't seem to ever be able to get that right. I feel like the only people that did it was when they relayed Mac Jones for the Asian Cup, and it was good for a couple of weeks, and that was about it.
Oh, we don't want to get into this. This is going to be another 40-minute discussion on turf. But I was actually having a chat with Muzz on the way home, and I sort of said, well, look, if they can look after turf in a freezing cold environment, sub-zero environments over in England, and have them coming up looking like Premier League pitches can come up looking like bowling greens. Why can't we do that when the climate's more temperate here? I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I did see there's a story on one of the news websites that Suncorp Stadium have just had to, after complaints there, they've now got, or as for I think it's this weekend, they've got like the magic round for where all the NRL teams go and play in Brisbane. And they've had to bring in like fans and like as in air circulation fans to dry the pitch out, and then the lights to heat it up and everything, because they're one whole end of the pitch there doesn't see sunlight during the day because of the shadow of the grandstands.
Yep.
So, they can do things like that. Surely we can do something like that, or just, turn all your LED screens on to some bright yellow, and surely that'll keep the grass going with the amount of screens that there seems to be there.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I don't know. You just shake your head sometimes. But look, yeah, like I said, it was it looked really good from the outside. But yeah, for 802 million, I thought the inside would look substantially different to the old one. But anyway,
Rip it down, start again.
oh, shit, yeah, no, I'd like them to spend a couple of thousand on McDonald Jones Stadium, like just fixing the roof would be nice. But yeah, we can't all have everything. So yeah, getting back to the game, look, like you said, it took 20, 25 minutes for us to get out of our shells a little bit. Like I said earlier, it just seemed we just seemed to be a little bit off the pace. The week off made us lose a little bit of momentum. We seemed to be at the peak of our powers for the most part, against the Mariners. But yeah, like I said, having that week off just seemed the passes were going a little bit astray, and I think also Sydney pressing us quite unexpectedly sort of played into that. It did take us a little bit of a while to adjust, but there were no goals scored in the first half, but there was plenty of pressing and a couple of chances, mainly for Sydney in that first half. But it was pretty, for the most part, a pretty end-to-end game without any goals in it, unfortunately, by the time the halftime whistle blew.
Yeah, well, I think we were definitely lucky that, again, Delianov, and there was quite a few sort of off the line clearances and stuff like that to actually be able to keep that goal scoring out, because otherwise, yeah, they potentially could have got 3 or 4 pretty early on there.
Yeah. I'm just having just looked at there's a highlights package that I've managed to get going from YouTube. So yeah, a couple of half chances early on. There was a chance snuffed out with Bayless having a crack that Ryan Grant stuck his foot out and smothered. About half an hour in, little chip ball that we cleared out of the way, and then bit of a shot from outside the 30 yards that got deflected, and Delianov was pretty much on straight away. We had another effort at goal that was going towards the goal, but the goalkeeper managed to get hold of it. Now, was the penalty shout in the first half or the second half?
First half, I believe.
Yeah, well, they haven't shown it, so the obviously period of don't want to be seen to be favouring a non-Sydney team. Do you remember the incident I was talking about?
I do, but don't quote me on explaining it. But basically, was there a handball? No, something else. I don't know. I can't remember. That was last week.
Yeah, I know. It'd be nice if it was. I literally just watched the game like an hour and a half ago too, and I was hoping to remember it all. But yeah, like I said, the interview with Josh sort of seems to have driven it out of my memory. But yeah, anyway. Look, the second half got underway, and the first goal went in pretty much the 50th minute. Bit of a ping pong around in the box a little bit. It broke to Stammer, who ended up getting his head on it and putting it past Delhi. But I was a little bit annoyed there wasn't a foul called, because he basically shoved Natter out of the way as he was trying to get his head up to it to head the ball out of the way, which caused him to fall over, which then meant Natter couldn't get to the ball, and Stammer just basically had a clear header at it to put the ball away. Did you see it that way yourself, or they VAR checked it and cleared it? So I'm assuming they just put it down to it wasn't strong enough by Natter.
Yeah, I didn't see it as clear cut as perhaps you were, but I definitely could see that there was a bit of pushing going. But it was one of those, both going for the ball. What are you expecting to do? And Stammer was just lucky enough, I think, to get a fairly favourable bounce that just meant he had to steer it more so than do anything else.
Yep. Yeah, bit frustrating. I would like it. I would like it if we'd have been able to stop them from doing that. But look, not really much you can do when. I mean, we know how good Stammer is with capitalising on that sort of thing, and he used his body and moved Natter out of the way, and obviously that was legal because they didn't punish him for it. And yeah, that was 1-0, unfortunately. Didn't last very long though. 7.5 minutes later, a great break down the left-hand side of the pitch by Clayton Taylor, who had 2.5 to 3 players on him. He got a lucky bounce where the ball squirted free and was able to run onto it, and an absolutely beautiful pass across 2 defenders to get it onto Eli's foot, and Eli absolutely buried it, and that brought the game back to equal footing.
Yeah, and that was, Eli seems to be the one that we're sort of guaranteeing for results at the moment, which is always the good way to go.
Yeah, and did the Did the statue celebration and then followed it up with the chills celebration again. So he was adding to his post game celebration repertoire. Absolutely fantastic. And then there was a couple of substitutions as the game wore down. A couple of players went onto the bench and iced up immediately. I think Dobson had ice on his ankle, and Ben, I think, had ice on his hamstring, and it was mentioned in the telecast that it was just like, there was no injury there, but it was a tough physical game, so they were just getting recovery started early. But it was interesting to see Cluffy come on rather than start. I thought maybe he seems to need to get into games a little bit. I don't know whether I quite liked the performances we got from him when Dobson was out with that concussion protocol. So obviously we didn't have much choice, so Cluffy had to start. And I thought we seemed to get a better tune out of him than when we've been bringing him on as a sub. Did you see that at all?
With Cloughy, I feel like he needs to, again, just get that consistency. We haven't seen enough yet of time, but at the same time, the positions that he's in, there are other players that do have that consistency at the moment. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how he's deployed through the rest of the season, but then also, in that long off season and into next season, I don't see him going anywhere. So yeah, hopefully we can find a place.
Yeah, well, he's one of the few players we've got signed past the end of the season, so it will be interesting to see who goes. And I think it's pretty much assured that he's going to be one of the nailed on starters next season. Because like I said, there's going to be a few player movements. But look, not really much else to talk about with the rest of this game. I'm just sort of winding up the highlights here. There was a couple of half chances to the giant lump of wood they had as a striker that they brought on in the second half. Ahmed Arslan was a massive pain in the backside for the 20 minutes he was on the pitch that I remember. They did have some good performances from quite a few of their players, I thought. Garuccio, Alex Popovic, Kispe and Quintal were sort of real players that stood out to me when I was watching it live in the stadium. You could definitely see the work rate and everything they were doing. Did you have any other players from their side that you wanted to highlight?
I thought Joe Lolly coming on, I expect him to do a little bit more than what he did, but
he got a big reaction from the
huge chance,
crowd.
but
He got a big
he
reaction
did.
from the crowd.
He got a very, very big reaction, and I feel that he. I don't know the whole story there, but he seemed to have really gotten frozen out of being able to really do anything there, and I guess when he got his chance, he perhaps could have done a bit more, but that's up to the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, I don't know if he's been frozen out. I think he's been injured. He's been having a lot of injury issues this season, which is why they haven't performed, I think, as well as they would have expected. But he's been missing for large portions of the season through injury. So I think just mainly, inconsistency in performance is probably down to the fact that he's just not properly match fit. I'm pretty sure that was the first time. I don't think he appeared in the previous game against Melbourne, but I could be wrong. I didn't watch it, but from what I heard on the telecast watching the game back, I thought that was his first game that they'd seen him for a good couple of weeks. So that's probably why we didn't really see much from him. So I'm just hoping that's going to continue into next week or into this week's game so that, he's not going to be a pain in the ass that we know he is, but he never really seems to perform that well against us. I think maybe last season he sort of might have ripped us apart in one or two games, but this season he's pretty much been missing for all the times we played them. I think pretty sure that in that first game he might have been there, but was pretty anonymous. It was the other kid, Toure, that was
Right, yeah.
that was the one that scored all their goals and was ripping us a new one for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's thankfully missing, and fingers crossed he's not going to be there for Saturday. But yeah, they had some players that did really well in this game compared to how they played in the previous game. So fingers crossed they go back to how we thought they would play, and they're a little bit more defensive, and it's something we can work with.
Yeah. Oh, and there's definitely some like quality in Sydney FC, but um, it also seemed to be. It didn't look like it was a holistic team performance. Put it that way.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully the games the game has given us a little bit of fuel in the legs, and we can get something out of that. Well, look, it's basically even Stevens at halftime, so we'll switch to talking about the upcoming game. So the leg two, it's all to play for this Saturday night at McDonald Jones Stadium. So if you haven't got tickets, I'm seeing talk online that there is only 5,000 tickets left. So that means that we're already over 20,000 already. So hopefully we can get an even bigger crowd than we got against the Mariners in the final game of the season, mate.
You would hope so, considering it's arguably the biggest game of the season so far, and whatever else. So yeah.
So
Um,
7:40 kickoff this Saturday. So yeah, if you haven't got your tickets already, there's not very many left. I think general admission's pretty much all sold out. It's basically just the sides that are available, and there's only 5,000 left. So yeah, they've already announced that Cooper's is sold out for the earlier second leg game. So they're hoping that there'll be enough of a walk up crowd that they'll be able to put the full house sign up at in Newcastle as well.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it won't be a record breaking crowd, obviously, because of that top tier of the Eastern being closed, as we've talked about. But look, the more games we can get a crap load of people in, and show them that the Jets are back, and it's not the Jets of old that always pull a big crowd and then disappoint everyone. Hopefully we can show them that this is something to reinvest your time and love into. So I'm hoping. Look. I don't think it's make or break that we win this and go to the grand final, but it would certainly help.
Yeah, well, I think if I didn't see enough in the away leg that I'm not confident will go, and you know, I think we just need to be switched on more at the
Yep.
start, which will be something that would have been worked on this week for sure.
Yep.
And if we can come out strong, then we should be able to go on with it. And I hope that we can get 2 or 3 goals, and it's a convincing, trip in, and we're not sitting there wondering what happens. But I'm assuming, like everything, there's away goal advantage and all that sort of stuff that we're up so far. So just got to
Negative.
finish it off.
Negative.
Oh, of
No,
course it's not.
there's no away goals rule. It was actually an interesting discussion.
A League.
It was actually an interesting discussion on the Round Ball Australia podcast about this whole finals system. Are you a fan of how it currently is? Or is away goals something that you think would work better, or would you rejig the whole finals system, or is you happy with the way it goes, the way it is at the moment?
Well, considering I didn't know that, away goals wasn't a thing, then like I always look at it as if you can go away from home and get a better result, then that should, carry over where it can. Um, but I guess also getting into the whole the football purist argument around, who was the better team and all that sort of stuff. I became much more a fan of the first past the post sort of mindset when we had the grand final against Victory, because from memory, Victory came from pretty far down the ladder to actually make it to the grand final, and then
I think they
obviously,
finished fifth or sixth.
yeah, and then to come through and then actually win it, it was like, well, of the two teams, we had the more consistent season.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, but obviously, I heard one of the podcasts talking about the fact that, one of the big things with the A League and whatever else is that the clubs actually make pretty good money out of the final series. But then I heard at the same time that that all goes to the APL. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah, well, no, the apparently the APL collects all of the money that they make during the finals, but then it gets distributed equally, I'm pretty sure, to, well, it used to be. I don't know what the current, I'm pretty sure that, I haven't heard that the arrangement's different. I'm pretty sure the money that's collected during the final series gets equally distributed to the clubs, or there's a distribution to the clubs. I don't know what whether it's an equal breakdown or whether there's a weighted breakdown based on the teams that are actually in the finals. But look, it's probably not necessarily going to be. I mean, the social media was pretty damning about the turnout in the elimination finals. From what I was again listening to the Roundball Australia podcast when they were doing their review episode of the first games, the games from the elimination round, they were two pretty poor turnouts both in Melbourne and over in Auckland. But there were mitigating circumstances for at least Auckland. I don't know what the deal was with the poor turnout in Melbourne, apart from it being Melbourne. Melbourne. But yeah, it was interesting. It's interesting that you would think that considering the crowds Auckland have been getting, that they got less than 20,000 for that final, for that game. But interesting. They're certainly going to be making their money from Coopers and Mac Jones. So it will for the first games. Not really crowds that were massively impressive. So the away legs for the high placed teams. So us especially, that Sydney crowd, I would actually grade as poor. I don't know why they only got 17,000 to that game. That was really weird, but. Yeah, interesting. We're definitely going to get more than that, and we might even go close to selling a similar number of tickets the following week if it all works out that way. But looking at the Dave stats for this game. From the thread on the Newcastle Football Net forums, 64 fixtures between the teams. There's been just 14 Jets wins. There have been 36 Sydney FC wins, and there have been 14 draws. In Newcastle, that breakdown is 30 matches, 8 Jets wins, 15 Sydney wins, and 7 draws. So look, we haven't got history on our side. We never have in this fixture against this team. It's sort of been pretty good to see this season that it's been much more competitive than it has been, although, that first game was a bit of a wake-up call, so thank God it was better in the final two. But, there's a long history of us losing to this team in both Sydney and in Newcastle. But, look, considering the last time we played Sydney in finals, I'm fingers crossed for a repeat of that.
Yeah, and hopefully we can. As I said, I think it's just going to all come down to, starting as strongly as we can so that we can get in and get it done and get out again.
Yeah, and with a record crowd behind us, especially considering how they reacted the previous home game, then you would think that would be an extra couple of percent in the afterburners for the guys as well. Any changes to the starting lineup if Lockie Rose is fit? Do you throw him in on the off chance that he can make it through for 60 minutes, or do you leave him on the bench and continue with what we've been seeing in the last two games?
No, I think we'll leave him on the bench and continue with what we've been seeing.
So you wouldn't have any changes at all?
Nah, keep it all the same.
Righto. It's interesting to see that we still haven't seen much from Max Cooper. That Costa's been preferred to as the centre back. That's been something a little weird that I've noticed in the last couple of weeks. You
Yeah,
notice that as well?
no, it's definitely been one of those things that I've thought about. Like you'd think that they would be able to, yeah, have a look at like Max Cooper's always been touted as one of the better young players coming through, but I
Yep.
guess if Costa's able to keep that head there, then why not
Yeah.
bring
Well,
him on if he's doing well?
and Costa's the club captain, so you can't necessarily leave him sitting on the bench. But it's sort of like, well, while Max Burgess is doing so well, anchoring the midfield, you don't really want to upset that by bringing Costa on. But then again, do you bring Costa on and then move Maxi a bit further forward, or do you leave him where he's been performing so well?
Yeah, I think at the moment things seem to be working. So why, change a working formula?
Yeah, well, and we kept that working formula for 10 games, or 9 games. So yeah, we saw what consistency did for the team. That was the reason why we won the plate. So yeah, if that's what Millsy's going to do, it certainly paid dividends this season. We'll definitely see how well it pays off in this game anyway. Seeing whether he does stick with what he's been putting out the last couple of weeks. We sort of really touched on all the players that we touched on in the first leg that performed well for Sydney FC are going to be players to watch out for in the second leg. There's probably not really much else to talk about other than to say if you're umming and ahhing about getting to the stadium, buy a ticket for Christ's sake before the sold out sign goes up and get to what's going to be a fantastic game and a fantastic atmosphere on Saturday night. Fingers crossed we can start a lot better than we did in the game in the first game, and that we're going to be able to perform and not just end up getting with a little bit of luck on our side, because it would be great to scrub away the ghosts of 2018 with a home final where we actually might come away with the result rather than other factors causing one of the most painful memories in Newcastle's history.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think as long as we test the VAR at that end multiple times, and maybe even get another angle from the other end just to make sure, then we should be right.
Yeah, have the IT guys on standby. Turn the tablet off and on again. Just make sure
That's right.
it's all working. Make sure we've got the Wi-Fi password all sorted out.
Yeah. Get a Starlink at that end.
Yeah. Yep. Whatever's required, do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, are you going to do a prediction for this game?
I am, and I am going to say a 2-1 victory to the Jets.
Ooh. I'm going to say. Do I? I haven't been caring about results or like tipping a result and jinxing it all season. So look, I'm going to go a 3-1 win. I'm going to go a 3-1
Okay.
win.
You can do that.
Yep. There's time to be bold now. We've exercised the demons, so I think we've won two trophies already this season. I think we've been able to successfulully get rid of the jinx. So I'll go back to tipping results, although I'll probably be kicking myself on 9:45 on Saturday night. From a mine site up in the Upper Hunter. But yeah, everybody make sure you enjoy yourselves. I won't be there, but I'll be trying to tune in on Bar TV's radio app so that I can listen to the game live. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to stop spoilers from jumping up on my phone, so I'm going to have to work out a way to actually be able to listen to the game. So yeah, fingers crossed that's going to be possible. Yeah, that's pretty much or actually the other game that's taking place, the game at Cooper Stadium. What do you think the result in that one's going to be? You reckon Adelaide could win it?
I think Adelaide can win it, and I reckon they will win 3-2.
Um, I'm going to go a 2-0 win in that game. Yeah, I don't really want to. It just depends whether Auckland get any of their players back. That's the bit, and that's been the thing that's sort of derailed their season for the most part. They've been missing a bunch of players at key times, which meant they couldn't overhaul us on the table, and then they dropped to third when they pretty much looked like they had second sewn up for ages. But that's been the big issue for them. But look, I'm looking over their starting lineup for the game where they drew against Adelaide, and I don't know which of the players they're actually, how many of the players are actually missing. I think De Vries has been the one that's been a big miss for them. Cosgrove was on the pitch, Mai was on the pitch, Randall was on the pitch, Verstrade was on the pitch. So didn't look like they were missing heaps. Wood was in goals, so yeah. Yeah, look, they've had enough success. They've only been around for 5 minutes, so they can give other teams a go, for crying out loud. I don't know. Would you prefer to play Adelaide in the final or Auckland?
I'd prefer to play Adelaide, to be honest.
It'd definitely be a more exciting game.
Well, and I don't know. I seem to have a lot of memories of just good, exciting results against Adelaide, which may not be the case at all. And I may be only thinking of
Not
one particular game. But
not away from home. away from
no,
yeah.
I seem to just always come back to like a good memory is the game. I believe it was against Adelaide where Morton Nordstrom scored like in the 98th minute or something like that, and it was just a good time.
I
So
think any time Morton scored was a good time for everybody concerned.
yeah,
Yeah. You're probably right. That it's not sticking out in my mind, but that wasn't us getting ahead of ourselves. By the way, we are most definitely not looking past Sydney FC. But yes, if the the exciting thing does happen and it does fall our way, then hey, we can most definitely look at the look ahead to see who we're possibly going to be playing the following week. But look, they're both going to be exciting games. So yeah, it's going to be a great weekend of football. And hopefully it's not the last weekend of football for this season. Fingers crossed. But
yeah.
we will not count our chickens, etc. But fingers crossed for a really good result. The only other thing we probably need to talk about, there's already some rumours starting to swirl around the place with players coming and going. I did notice we've been I don't know if it's solid, but there was obviously the Guillermo Mai from Auckland link. Like there was talk that we've been linked with an Auckland player probably a few months ago, but seems to be that Mai is the player that they were talking about. Would that be interesting in your eyes?
I did hear that. I haven't paid close enough attention to see who is sort of good from that end, to be honest. But look, if we're going to bring someone in, we're going to bring someone in. That's what's going to happen. I don't see us having the wholesale changes this season that we are probably or fait accompli to going to happen. I think Clayton Taylor goes. Obviously, Lockie Rose goes. Was gone already, pretty much. And outside of that, I don't see too many other people going. I saw at one point there that Lockie Bayless's brother was coming in, but Lockie Bayless was leaving. Yeah, I just don't
Yeah.
see it.
We are linked with Lockie's brother, but it seems there would be a much higher chance of him coming to us if we were able to keep Lockie, which I think would be hopefully one of something that the club's working pretty diligently on. I reckon obviously we know, I'm pretty sure it's no secret that Taylor's going to be gone, because he wanted to be gone before the season even started, but he's put his head down and worked really well. He's had a fantastic season, and fingers crossed that means he goes overseas. I have seen a couple of articles linking him to a move to MacArthur, but that seems to be a stupid sideways and even a backwards move in my eyes. I don't know why you would go to another A-League team that wasn't Sydney or Melbourne, to be honest. I don't really see anything other than staying here and continuing good work, or going overseas to a better league as being a realistic option for Clayton. I think that he should be most definitely looking for some sort of move to either a top tier league in Asia or one of the lower leagues in Europe.
Yeah, I feel like I saw something linking him with MacArthur, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's a backward step.
Oh, definitely. I think Costa's been linked there as well.
Yeah, that's not exactly as much of a backward step.
No.
But
Yeah. Well, yeah.
yeah, like for Costa, it's one of those situations where you're gonna go. Is Costa guaranteed first, starting 11 football next season? No.
Yeah. Well, he's off contract.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
is the option re-sign or go somewhere else? Yeah.
Is he going to re-sign a new contract on the basis of that he may very well not be like, I think next season they continue with like a leadership group, not necessarily an outright captain.
Yep.
Which will probably be a mix of like Max Burgess, Costa, whatever else. But is Costa going to hang around if he loses that? If he is not guaranteed to, start every game and all that sort of stuff? Or is he going to go to another A-League club where he is guaranteed to start every week and all that sort of stuff? Like, I just, it's pretty clear what's going to end up happening there. But at the same time, if that frees up, because I imagine, I don't want to say Costa Grosas is highly paid, but I imagine he's probably paid a bit more than some of the other players in the squad.
Yep.
So if you're going to free up that money, then happy days.
Yeah. You would definitely need, I think, for that position, especially with Maxi not being a young, he's not a spring chicken. I'm not saying he's old or by any means, but he's definitely going to be more prone to injury, and I'd like to make sure that we would have a utility player that could cover in that position. So look, if we were re-signing Costa on that basis, that we were using him as cover for midfield or defence like he has been, then fair enough. But it would probably be part of the leadership group, not necessarily as, continuing on as the club captain. So and it would probably be on a little bit less money because, he's also not getting any younger. But he does have experience. But a question is also going to be, is he the best option in that position? Considering he wasn't playing for a great deal of that time when we were on that winning streak, it was Maxi Burgess in that position. So, is he realistically going to be any more than a utility player, especially when you've got a younger player like Christian Bracco, who does can play in defence and can also play in the centre of midfield as well. So do you run with that? But then again, he's also been injured this season. He may have an ongoing issue. We don't know. It all depends how well he recovers. But yeah, it's definitely interesting time for Boogs being the football operations manager at the club. So I'm sure he's got all of those things into his spreadsheet, and if he hasn't, I can give him the number of somebody who's got spreadsheets that can help him out. But there's obviously going to be more and more of these little tidbits popping in and out as as we get to the grand final, and then it's basically just going to be open slather once the grand final's finished, because that's when a whole bunch of players are going to be moving. And I noticed with interest there's a absolute crapload of talent being released from Brisbane Roar, so they've basically wiped the slate clean up there. So who knows, there may be a couple of interesting players that we might pick up, but I think that's going to be pretty much a story for most clubs, I think, mate. There's going to be quite a few players available, and it's just a question of the club being able to sort through the ones that are available and make sure we pick the ones that are the best fit for us, rather than taking whoever's available because we need bodies, which has been our strategy for years and years and years. And it looks like finally we've learned our lesson, and we're actually targeting people that fit the system rather than getting in whoever we can.
And also, let's continue to, look forward. We don't need to go back to, I know since our last recording, there was rumours circulating that Dimi Petratos is looking for a home and all that sort of stuff. I don't see where a Dimi Petratos fits in, especially when you've got,
No.
if Battleado comes back at even, 20% of what he was doing before, he's still better than Dimi Petratos, I'd say.
And Dimi had, let's not forget, Dimi had his standout season at our last grand final in 2018. That was how many years ago now? 8.
Yeah.
8 years ago. He's 8 years older. And he hasn't, where has he been? Has he been over in India?
India, and I want to say possibly a bit in Malaysia,
yeah,
or something
so
like that.
Hasn't really been in the top tier of Asian football. Like, even a J2 or a Korea, or any of the sort of slightly higher tier. I mean, they're still good competitions, but they're not at the level of they're ACL2. They're ACL2 level teams, not ACL elite level competitions. So it's probably a player that we probably would have taken back 4 or 5 years ago, but with how things are now with the strategy behind the club, I don't think that that's going to be a realistic possibility. Like, he was a great player for us at the time, but yeah, I don't see that there's a way back in for him here. I just don't think we'd be able to get the best out of him. We don't.
I mean,
we need players that are quicker than that.
so he's been at his current club since 2022. He's scored 28 goals in 73 appearances.
That's a decent return
And that's
for
in
a
India
midfielder.
for Mohan Bagan.
Yeah, that's one of the IPL teams, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, that's not too bad. Look, I'm pretty sure the IPL pays pretty well, so he's probably not needed to move for a bigger payday, because gets paid pretty well, and he's obviously was comfortable there. So look, if
He's actually, I thought he was older, but he's only 33.
yeah, right. Well,
Which, yeah.
look,
Interesting thing though, Mohan Bagan, their nickname is the Mariners.
oh dear. Well, he's instantly disqualified just on that basis. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely not, Demi. I thought we trained you better than that, Demi. Jesus, yeah, can't be going to a team called the Mariners. No,
Yeah.
no, that can't be done. No, it's guilt. That's yeah, you've done your dash. Righto. I don't think, was there any other rumours that you noticed? I don't think there was any other I remember. I think Demi was the one that I had forgotten that I do remember seeing, but I don't think there was any other links to or from us beyond the ones that we've already mentioned. No,
I don't think so.
No. If you are keen for some rumours and all that good stuff, the Jets fan news account is a good one that seems to pop up pretty regularly with some pretty good info. So I don't know who's leaking club information to him, but keep that going, please, because football rumors, transfer rumors is what makes the world go round, and it's definitely going to keep us interested in the off season. So most definitely keep the info coming if you have it.
Yep.
Righto, mate. I think we've done nearly an hour and a half as usual. So I think it's probably time to pull the pin on it. But mate, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the game on Saturday night while I'm pushing dirt around.
Mate, well, you got to pushing dirt around keeps the economy moving, as we know. So you do great work, but at the end of the day, you're not pushing turf around, so you're still not really contributing in the way you should. So if you could get on that, just borrow, no one will notice a D11 missing. Just take it.
No, absolutely
go
not.
go and give the pitch a bit of a run over,
Yep.
and then we can rebuild.
We can get it fixed. Yep, absolutely. But look, the disadvantage of working a rotating roster means I'm off this weekend, but the advantage is if we end up winning, I'll be off for the grand final and not have to take any extra leave. So look, it checks and balances, pros and cons. It is what it is.
Silver lining,
absolutely.
My friend, silver lining.
All right, mate. Thank you very much for jumping on, and hopefully I will be speaking to you and or Matt next week to preview something even more exciting.
Hey, you might even be lucky enough to get both.
Yeah, that would be fabulous. But Matt's got a lot of stuff going on in his life at the moment. So when he's available to jump on, fingers crossed it might be next week. But we'll hopefully see him when we see him.
I heard Pete was coming on.
If he's listening, come on, Pete. Challenge has been thrown down. Yep. Challenge has been thrown down. He doesn't like to talk. He prefers to. There's a reason why he's called Producer Pete in the chat, because he prefers to be on the pots and pans, not on the microphone.
Well, it might even be time to pull a Joel Goodser out of retirement or something like that.
Yeah, I've been trying to get the Super Coach back onto the podcast for a while, but he's frustratingly unavailable due to his success. Fingers crossed I might be able to get him back on here so we can talk about mentality and get drunk.
Yeah, well, I might have to just clean the decks and get Morris on as well.
Yeah, well, that's I did hear from him a couple of weeks ago. The plan was to try and get him on before, it's sort of in the off week, but unfortunately a couple of things happened and I wasn't quite available, and Matt was also busy, so we weren't able to do that. So a couple of things come up, unfortunately. But look, if we can try and get him lined up or someone lined up from the club before the grand final, we will do that. Otherwise, we will be try and do this post-season as part of a bunch of episodes coming out after the season concluded, whether that's this weekend or next weekend. But we'll wait and see what happens.
Yep.
Righto. Thanks,
all
mate.
All good. Well, enjoy.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for listening, subscribing. Get along to NewcastleFootball.net for all the subscription links for the podcast and links to all the old video content that hasn't been updated in ages. If we do make a grand final, I'll be taking a GoPro so that I can finally get something uploaded onto the website in that respect. Get onto the forums as well. That's received quite a decent increase in traffic in the last couple of weeks. It looks like most of the registration and email problems have been sorted. So definitely get onto that. If you do find yourself having issues with the website, info at NewcastleFootball.net to contact me for that sort of stuff. If you want to get in touch podcast related, it's podcast at NewcastleFootball.net, or you can drop us a DM on any of the social medias. It is at Jetstream Newy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Until next time, vemos el Jerkos.
Go the Jets, and please make the episode title info, INFO.
Righto. I'll write that down now.